As many of you I'm sure know, in Europe, the private realm, the insides of homes, are pretty modest by our standards. Okay, pretty modest. Their private realm compared to ours is really modest. By comparison, the American public-private realm insides of our homes are palatial oftentimes. Even people that are lower in income, even lower income, more modest households have pretty nice insides on a world standard. But, I mean, it's just palatial what we have in the private realm in America. Now, by striking contrast, you look at the public realm, the streets and sidewalks and parks. In Europe, this is a scene of a major commercial street in Paris. Okay? Every day we were staying here in a hotel. Every morning we'd go out into the streets and we'd experience this fantastic experience of people smiling, being happy, friendly, sociable. Just a fabulous experience. The building ornamentation was spectacular. It was very festive. An enjoyable experience every morning awaited us in the public realm. And this public realm is an equal opportunity public realm. Everyone enjoys this quality of life because it's accessible to all of us, regardless of income or status, race, or your minority group or whatever. All people enjoy the public realm quality of life. By contrast, the American public realm is perhaps the most miserable in the developed world. Okay, this is the experience that we almost always have in our public realm in America. The streets, sidewalks, and parks are awful. People are fleeing from this. As anywhere you say, strip commercial design is just engulfing so many cities, leading to a huge decline in civic pride, and we flee from it, understandably. Okay, we start cocooning away. This is the traditional residential design pattern that we have abandoned since World War II. This happens to be my house, the house I used to own in Gainesville, Florida. It shows fairly well the walkable design that we've abandoned over the past several decades. What you'll see in this design is you'll see that the house is at a conversational distance from the public realm, the sidewalk. Easy to talk to people on the sidewalk and vice versa. Okay? People walking by the sidewalk can interact with people on the porch. The house is close enough to give its energy to the public realm. It faces the public realm. The windows, the doors are facing. They're close enough so that there's energy given back and forth. There's more citizen surveillance, so there's more citizen crime control that results naturally from the fact that people in houses can look out on the public realm and see if there's any problems that need to be reported, and vice versa. People on the sidewalk are close enough to be able to report on any problems experienced in the house. So there's citizen surveillance when you have this kind of traditional design. By contrast, you know, for several decades we've been doing this, designed to make cars happy. We had the situation where the protruding garage where the car lives forms what's known as a snout house. Okay? There's probably no public realm here. There's probably no sidewalk in this kind of design, this suburban design. Okay? Now, the garage is so prominent that what we have essentially, the message this building sends us is that a car lives here and the people live in an accessory unit out back. Okay? That's what this tells us. And what kind of rewarding experience would you have if you walk by a place where you're essentially seeing the house turn its back to you? You know, there's nothing being given to the public realm here. It's all about the car. Anthropologists looking back, archaeologists looking back at the ruins of the American civilization will have no difficulty knowing what Americans were most concerned about. It will not be difficult for them to know what we're all about. Now, what happens is we're turning our backs so much that we're cocooning ourselves from the public realm. The public realm is so miserable that we cocoon ourselves, we turn our backs on it, and we start living vicarious lives. We become a nation of loners, okay? We start having vicarious friends through our television shows because we're abandoning the public realm where we normally would meet friends, engage in sociability. It's all vicarious, increasingly, and it increasingly becomes a more empty, sterile life because there's really little you can experience in terms of sociability and sense of community by cocooning yourself inside your home and watching television all the time. Okay? And this is actually an unrealistic image because almost always we never really watch television, even as a family. We usually watch alone or with one other person. So even this is kind of unrealistic in its images. This is an image of Gainesville, Florida's main post office, built about 100 years ago. a magnificent building, magnificent. It was the kind of building that I would take out-of-town guests to show off my city, because it was such a magnificent building. It was so wonderful, really, really impressive building. You know, the columns, the masonry, it was just a fantastic building. By contrast, in recent years, this is the new main post office built in Gainesville a couple of years ago, okay? What has happened is that building ornamentation has become an expendable extravagance. We've fled from the public realm, and so now it's an extravagance to build buildings that have ornamentation that invoke civic pride. It's irrelevant to have the ornamentation, so we end up building things like this. What does this say about how much we respect our civic institutions? We build something like this compared to what we used to build 100 years ago, okay? Let's look at the location of those buildings. This is the location of our post office in 1910. Terminating the vista. Terminating the vista sends the message that I am an important building. My government is important because I'm in a high visibility, important location, picturesque also, I might add, for tourists. But the termination of a vista sends the message that I'm important. By contrast, the more recent main post office the city built in the suburban sprawl location, peripheral location in the city, is in this kind of a scene. Okay, you can't even see the post office. It's in a hidden away location, the message being, you know, our civic institutions are trivial. We don't invest much in the way of pride or significance to our civic buildings. That's the message we get from our new post office location in Gainesville. The big issue for almost all of us is traffic congestion, right? That's the thing we almost always talk about and get most aggravated about. Real important for us when we start this conversation to know that trips have different values. There are different importance levels for different kinds of trips. We need to keep that in mind because we almost never keep that in mind. You know, at the one end, we have high-value trips, emergency trips to the hospital, our commute trips to work. Those are relatively high value. At the other end, the joy rides, the recreational drives, the impulse drives, those are relatively low value. You know, going to rent a video, driving across town and renting a video, those are low value, okay? The catastrophic, ruinous, unsustainable thing we've done over the past several decades is we've ignored the fact that there are relative car trip values. We have spent hundreds of millions and billions of public dollars to assume that all those trips are equally high value. So we're spending all that public money to make sure that Bobby can drive across town at rush hour on a major street to rent a video. It's economically insane and totally unsustainable. But that is what we're doing, and we're bankrupting ourselves at all levels of government to make sure that Bobby can rent that video at rush hour. It's crazy, and we have to stop that. We have to acknowledge and design our streets to acknowledge the fact that there's differing values for different kinds of trips. Anthony Downs, an economist, really explains very clearly why, even in theory, we cannot build our way out of congestion. You know, you can't widen your way out of congestion. We always are saying that. We're always paying lip service to that. Anthony Downs says that even if you have infinite dollars, you cannot widen your way out of congestion. There are three things that inevitably happen when you, in this case, widen a road from 4 lanes to 6. First, you inevitably get the rush hour convergence when you widen. People converge back on rush hour because now the congestion street is more free-flowing. So more people converge back on it who were previously avoiding it because of the congestion. They converge back on rush hour. They were driving at different times earlier. Now they're converging on rush hour again because now it's more free-flowing. Second form of convergence, inevitably, is that more people converge back on car travel. In the past with congestion, some people were saying, I'm not going to tolerate that, I'm going to walk or bicycle or use transit. Now with the widened road, they converge back in car travel. Also, the barrier effect means that the road widens, people are less able to walk or bicycle or use transit, so they're more compelled to use a car. So the second form of convergence that inevitably happens is that people converge back on more car travel. The third and final form of convergence is route change convergence. Some people avoided the congested road, they didn't tolerate it, and so they wanted to escape it by using different routes. But now with the widening, they converge back. Those people converge back on the newly widened road, and inevitably, you get the same level of congestion and fairly quickly to what you had before the widening. It's not possible to build a way out of congestion. I'll say it over and over again. So ultimately what happens here, another way of looking at this, is that you have a congested two-lane road. Okay? The default solution we always have for the congested road is to widen it. So we widen to a four-lane road. What do we get? Almost overnight we get a congested four-lane road. All right? Then we widen again to avoid the congestion. We get a six-lane congested road almost overnight. So when we widen, we're not essentially escaping congestion by widening. All we're really doing is saying what form of, what flavor of congestion do you want? Do you want the two-lane congestion flavor, the four-lane congestion flavor, or the six-lane congestion flavor? That's the only question we're answering when we decide when we widen the road to try to escape congestion. We're not escaping it, we're just deciding what flavor of congestion we want. How about 10 lanes? 10 lanes allow us to escape congestion? Apparently not. You know, we have for several decades failed to learn the lesson that we can't build our way out of congestion. We try over and over again. We spend hundreds of billions of public dollars to bankrupt ourselves, not learning the lesson that we can't build our way out of congestion. We simply cannot seem to learn the lesson. We are destroying ourselves. We're bankrupting ourselves. You know, recently, Atlanta, Georgia, has talked seriously about wanting to go to 23 lanes with their interstate. Atlanta says we can build our way out of congestion. I say they can't. Okay? You cannot build your way out of congestion. It's just theoretically impossible. There is a concept that's very important, travel time budget. Okay? Cross-culturally and throughout history, on average, people will travel about 1.1 hours to and from work or school or whatever they do on a daily basis. On average. Some do more, some do less, but on average, 1.1 hours is the amount of travel time we allocate on a daily basis. You know, even back in the Stone Age, when people were hunting for mastodon, they had the travel time budget of 1.1 hours apparently. So we're apparently hardwired as a species to have this travel time budget. What this means importantly for us tonight is that with a slow-speed walking type of transportation system, for example, people live closer as a community. The community is more compact because the community needs to be within the 1.1 hour equilibrium point for travel. As the system speeds up, as the community's transportation speeds up with things like bigger highways, people live further away. There's more sprawl. People are getting back to the equilibrium of 1.1 hours. Again, transportation driving sprawl. Travel time budget is a very important concept that we should keep in mind.
Is that round trip or?
That's round trip, there and back. So, what we end up with, again, another way of illustrating this concept, a two-lane community largely based on two-lane roads will largely have whatever, you know, abstract size community. As we start widening to 4 lanes, we start moving more into a 4-lane type community. Again, we're not escaping sprawl, congestion. What we're doing is we're saying we're going to be a bigger community. That's all we're doing with building bigger roads. And again, going to 6 lanes, we're not escaping congestion by building 6-lane roads in our community. We're just building a bigger community because people are getting back to that 1.1 hour travel time budget. Okay? The equilibrium point is growing as we build bigger and bigger roads. Crucial to keep this in mind. Congestion regulates itself. Okay? Congestion does not get infinitely worse if we don't widen. We often think, mistakenly, that if we don't widen, the congestion will get worse and worse every week. You know, every week, one week it'll be a half-mile backup. The next week it'll be a mile backup. The next week it'll be a mile-and-a-half backup, and on forever. We believe that congestion will get infinitely worse. In fact, congestion regulates itself because some people have a certain tolerance level for congestion. They say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore, and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to live closer. I'm going to travel a different way. I'm going to travel at non-rush hour times. Congestion regulates itself, but when we widen to escape the congestion, we short-circuit the self-regulation. Okay? We must avoid widening as a solution to congestion because congestion will regulate itself. We have to keep that in mind. We often fail to realize that. We often think congestion will result in tolerable gridlock. It'll get worse and worse and worse, and that's just not true. Congestion regulates itself.